Instagram has said that they are not going to be embracing long form content the way that TikTok and YouTube are, but should you still be creating longer form content for your Instagram channel? And the answer is it depends on what your goals are and what you're doing to foster your community. Not everybody has to create long form, but for some of you, it could actually be beneficial despite the fact that Instagram is not leaning into it. So let's pull back just a little bit. Instagram has said they are not going to be embracing long form content. That doesn't mean you can't create it. That doesn't mean they're not giving you the opportunities to create it. And it doesn't mean if you put it out there that it won't be seen. It does mean that it has to be valuable to your community. Longer form content can still be found, it can still be suggested, but this really should be less of a come find me as you're scrolling, and more of a you're my community, this is going to help you. So come at it with the perspective of you're offering it to the people who are already following you or who are already aware of you. This should be instructional, educational. It should have some form of takeaway for people so they're able to watch it and take something away to benefit their life, their business, their whatever. It's going to be longer form content, and therefore it has to have a purpose. It's not just entertainment's sake. So you do want to be looking at some ways to invest your time into longer form content on the platform, but not nearly as heavily as you are on YouTube or on TikTok. TikTok having, of course, embraced that longer form content and is leaning heavily into it because they can monetize it more. Instagram has said we are short form content. We want that short form. That is what our audience is really engaging with. They are spending the time to look at a reel, but they're not necessarily going to spend the time to look at a longer form piece of content unless it's really good, really juicy. So you should be testing out some long form content, but it should not overwhelm you and it should not take over your strategy. By all means, if you have a really good YouTube video that you did that you also want to bring to this audience, try it. See what happens. If you are filming content and it goes over that minute mark and you're talking for a minute and a half or 2 minutes, test it out. That doesn't mean you are going to have a truncated reach just because it's a little bit longer, but it does mean that you should not necessarily be doing that for every single video. If every single thing is 3 minutes, 5 minutes, 7 minutes, that's probably not going to resonate with your audience as well as a 30-second video is. Instagram is all about quick consumption. They want to be able to see that photo and move on. They want to be able to see the album, swipe through, and move on. They want to be able to get that 15-second video with something interesting or something they can take away and move on. They have the data, they have the research, and they have specifically said on Instagram, people are sharing short-form content. They're leaning into sending DMs to their friends of something that's going to be valuable to them, but they don't want to waste their time or make them have a big time investment. So the things that people are clicking that little button to send it in the DMs, that is usually short form reels. Sometimes it's like quote graphics, or sometimes it's albums, sometimes it's a pretty photo, but for the most part, it's going to be that shorter form vertical reels content because it is entertaining. It is going to keep their attention for a few seconds, and it's going to communicate something that people want to share. Remember, Instagram is all about the DMs. More activity happens in the DMs than anywhere else on Instagram. So they're heavily leaning into showing content that is shareable. They're looking at who they're talking to in the DMs, their friends and their family, and what they're sending them. So if they see interesting content that reminds them of a friend, they send it to them. If it's something that's informational that will help with that friend's life, they send it to them. They're actively looking in the algorithm for shareable content, and longer form content just isn't as shareable. If I were to send you a 30-second video that was going to just completely change the course of your day, you'd probably take the 30 seconds to watch it. But if I sent you a 20-minute video that would change the course of your day, are you going to take the 20 minutes to watch that? Probably not. You might try it, maybe, but 20 minutes is a big time investment. So on Instagram, focus on that short form vertical content. Your albums will also potentially do really well, and then maybe some static images. But you got to focus on that short form content, but supplement it, sprinkle in some of the longer form content just to see how it goes. You might have something that takes off. You might have something that does really well, but make sure it's supporting your existing community because they are the ones that are most likely to stop and watch that 5-minute video, that 12-minute video. They are the ones that are more likely to pause and take the time to support you for that longer duration. And understand this should be a smaller part of the content you are creating on the platform because it's just not as relevant, but it can be very helpful and it can be very fruitful for you if you do it once in a while strategically and with very specific intentionality. Drop your questions on this down below. Let me know if you tried out longer form content on the Instagram platform and follow along for daily episodes helping you navigate the world of Instagram and TikTok and YouTube and live streaming and all of the changes in the algorithm system and those big announcements that typically most people miss. I'm usually the first one to bring you all this breaking news. Most creators cannot keep up with me and they usually take a couple extra days to get that to you. So if you want to stay ahead of the game, follow along, drop your questions, and we'll see you in tomorrow's daily episode.